You're just scrolling through your phone, you tap on an app, and have you ever just stopped for a second and thought, how does this actually work? Like, how does a simple idea turn into this thing that I use every single day on my screen?
Honestly, it can feel like pure magic, right? You tap one little icon and boom, this whole world just opens up. But spoiler alert, it's not magic. It's actually a super fascinating process of design, engineering, and a whole lot of code.
So today, we're going to pull back that curtain. And to make sense of it all, we're going to use an analogy that I think you can really picture. We're going to look at building an app just like we're constructing a massive skyscraper, starting with the city plan and taking it all the way to the grand opening.
All right, let's dive right in. Now, before any construction can even begin, a great architect has to understand the city they're building in, right? So first things first, let's get the lay of the land. Welcome to the Android universe.
So what is this city we're talking about? Well, at its core, Android is what we call an open-source operating system, and it's built on a Linux foundation. The easiest way to think about it is this. Linux is the bedrock, the solid ground beneath the city, and Android? That's the city's master plan built right on top of it. It's the roads, the power grid, the zoning laws, all put in place by Google to make sure everything works.
And of course, a city is way more than just the land it's built on. It's about the people. In this ecosystem, you've got a few key players. Google is kind of like the original city planner. Then you have the Open Handset Alliance, which is like the Chamber of Commerce, making sure everyone plays fair. The hardware makers, Samsung, Motorola, they're the construction companies building the actual physical devices. The developers, they're the architects designing all the cool, unique buildings. And then, of course, you have us, the users. We're the residents living in this awesome digital city.
And let's be clear, we are not talking about some small town here. This is a global megacity. We're talking 2.8 billion active users worldwide. That makes the Android ecosystem one of the biggest digital communities on the entire planet. So yeah, the potential audience for any new skyscraper you build here, it's absolutely massive.
Okay, so we get the city plan. But hey, no builder can start a project without their tools, right? So it's time to open up the developer's digital toolbox.
Think about it like this. To build the skyscraper, you need the entire workshop, right? The saws, the hammers, the cranes, the whole shebang. That's the JDK, the Java Development Kit. But once the building is all done, the people living there just need the power to turn on the lights. That's the JRE, the Java Runtime Environment. So one is for building, the other is just for running. Simple as that.
Now, if the JDK is your general-purpose workshop for building anything, then the SDK, that's the Software Development Kit, is the specialized toolkit made just for building Android skyscrapers. It's the official box from Google, packed with all the blueprints, the special tools, and the specific building codes you need for this city.
And inside this SDK, you get some seriously cool gear. The Android emulator, that lets you build a full-scale virtual model of your app to test it out without needing a physical phone. The ADB is basically your walkie-talkie to the construction site. DDMS is like a project inspector who helps you find and fix any problems. And SQL 8.3, that's the key to the building's file cabinets, letting you get at the app's data.
And all of this comes together in one central location. This is the main job site, the headquarters for the whole project. And that place is called Android Studio. It's the official IDE, or Integrated Development Environment. This is where the developer actually writes the code, uses all those cool tools from the SDK, and really assembles the app piece by piece.
All right, let's talk about the part of the skyscraper that everyone actually sees and interacts with. The facade, the windows, the lobby. In the app world, this is the user interface, or UI. It's the visible architecture.
And that interface is built with two basic building blocks. First, you have views. Think of a view as a single object, like a button as a doorknob, or an image as a window. Then you have view groups. That's the container, like the room or the floor that holds all those objects together. So really, every screen you've ever looked at on an app is just a collection of these rooms full of objects.
So let's build a quick little lobby screen, just to see how it works. First, you start with a layout. That's our floor plan. Then maybe we add an edit text widget. Think of that like the sign-in book at the front desk, where you can type your name. And finally, let's add a button. That's the login or submit button. See? It's just a simple, logical assembly of these basic parts.
But a skyscraper is so much more than what you just see from the street. We gotta go deeper. Let's head down into the sub-basement and check out the foundation, the power grid, the plumbing, all the stuff that makes it actually work. It's time to look inside the Android engine.
This whole system is built in layers, just like the floors of our building. So let's start at the very top, at Layer 1, the applications themselves. These are the finished departments and offices you use, your email, your games, everything. Go down a level to 2 and you hit the application framework. These are like the prefab walls and windows developers use to build faster. Supporting all that, at level 3 is the Android runtime. Think of this as the building's main power generator. Go even deeper to 4 and you find the native libraries. This is the raw plumbing and wiring. And finally, at the very bottom, number 5, you have the Linux kernel. This is the bedrock foundation of the entire system, managing everything from power to memory.
Okay, let's talk security for a second. In our skyscraper, every single apartment has solid walls and its own locked door. This is a really important concept called the application sandbox. The operating system gives each app its own unique key, a user ID. This makes sure that the app in Apartment 12A can't just peek into Apartment 12B and see what's going on. It's an absolutely critical feature for keeping your data private.
And do you know how some apps need to do things even when you're not actively using them? Well, think of those as the building's utility services. A foreground service is like the cleaning crew putting up a wet floor sign. You get a notification, so you know it's working. A background service is more like the building's heating system, just running silently in the background, not bothering you at all. And a bound service, that's kind of like the internal intercom system that other parts of the building can use to talk to each other.
All right, we've surveyed the city, we've opened the toolbox, we understand the materials, and we've checked the foundation. Now it's time for the final phase. Let's see how this all comes together in the actual construction process.
And look, you don't just show up on day 1 and start digging a hole. Phase 1 is all about the blueprint. First, you assemble your team of experts. Then you do your research. You look at the other buildings in the neighborhood to see what people like. You nail down the core features of your app. You create detailed mock-ups of how it's all going to look and feel. And, super important, you plan for security from the very beginning. You don't wait to add locks after the walls are already up.
Okay, once you have that solid plan, the hard hats come on and it's time to build. The coding starts, building both the front end that users see and all the back end stuff that makes it work. Then comes tons of testing. You're looking for bugs, checking compatibility, hunting for security flaws. Then you get real users to test it and give you feedback. And finally, after all that hard work, it's time for the grand opening. You launch it in the App Store for the whole world.
And the reason this whole thing is so huge is summed up perfectly by this quote. Because Android is such an open platform, an open city, it has led to an absolute construction boom. Think about this. Over 1.5 billion apps and games are downloaded from Google Play every single month. The scale is just mind-blowing.
So there you have it. That's the journey. It starts with just a simple idea, a sketch on a napkin, a blueprint for a building. And through this incredible process of engineering and creativity, it becomes a real thing, a tool, a game, a service that ends up in the hands of millions, sometimes even billions of people.
And that brings us to the final and maybe the most important question of all. We've shown you the city plan, we've opened up the toolbox for you, we've walked you through the entire construction site, so now that you know how it's all built, what are you going to create?